Some people have called Kalos the Steve Jobs of Web3 for his vision. He has so many ideas, so many things that can be done. Welcome everyone. We are here with Arithmos, a well-known community member from the Parallel community, and recently has been tweaking around and doing some amazing stuff with Wayfinder, one of the new products developed by the Parallel Studios. Big intro here for Arithmos. We want to highlight community innovation and educate users about everything that is possible with Wayfinder. Okay, for those who don't know what Wayfinder is, it's an AI that helps you navigate the blockchain. You can send transactions, you can trade tokens, you can do so many things with Wayfinder that it's mind-blowing, so innovative. And we have Arithmos here who has been using it and really exploring with it. Welcome, man. Tell us a bit about your background and journey.
Yeah. Well, first, it's great to be here, Quinto. A little bit about myself. So I am a 25-year IT professional in my normal day-to-day life. And I've just been a big technology lover for as long as I can remember. And I got involved in the Parallel community really a few years ago. My brother actually keyed me into Backdrop 3. And I thought that the art was phenomenal. And it really interested me from the get-go. So I purchased PD3. And then I kind of stepped away and ignored it for a while. Had some other stuff going on in life. But last March, started reading about Wayfinder, actually. And looking through the white paper, my brother had sent me a link to it, and it really keyed up my interest to come back and look at what the Parallel team was doing.
Nice. Really, really nice. So how did your experience as a player shape the way you interact with these tools in the sense that, like, for me, I've seen so many things about composability, about the use of parallel assets throughout their other games. For example, the colony avatars that will be using Sanctuary, that Wayfinder was born from exploring with Colony, basically. So does this experience has inspired you in any way?
So that was one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting. So around the same time that I was looking through the white paper, I forget how close by it was, but I started to learn a little bit about some of the early Colony postings, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds pretty cool. I should look into this some more." And then I was watching some talks that Kalos was doing, talking about kind of the history of where the ideas for Wayfinder came from and how they started to feed it into their own simulation game using parallel assets and turning it into what's now Colony. And the way that the team thinks has really been like a big inspiration for me, and learning more about the Parallel, the long-term, 10-year plan, so to speak, of building up all these assets from the ground up and then distributing them across multiple different game types and opportunities. And so I think that should be immediately interesting to everybody, because the way that I look at it, crypto Web3 really is like the perfect place to do this type of thing in. And Fitch has talked about it recently. Kalos has talked about it a bunch. Being able to make an investment in some game assets as a player, and then potentially having the opportunity to one day share those assets across multiple types of games inside of the same universe, I think is really a great fit for what crypto and Web3 can do.
Yeah, it's for me, it's mind-blowing how many possibilities exist of everything that can be done. And definitely some people have called Kalos the Steve Jobs of Web3 for his vision. He has so many ideas, so many things that can be done. And definitely what is going on with the Parallel Studios right now, like as you said, there seems to be something so new and innovative rising from all of this that just visionaries can actually understand it and how it will look 10 years from now. So yeah. Moving on here, you created an NFT collection using Wayfinder, right?
Yeah. They made a couple of them now. The first one was Plants of Crimea, and the second one I just released a few days ago. It's the Crew Quarters of Kane 1.
Okay. So what inspired these NFT collections?
Well, I was fortunate enough. Kalos put out a post a few months ago now, basically saying if you know anybody that would be a good fit for our closed alpha testing, drop them in the comments. And I kind of raised my hand, had a couple people vouch for me, and was fortunate enough to be selected. And once I got access, uh, I'd say the transaction agent inside of Wayfinder is very interesting in general, and it's going to make a lot of things easy. But I grew up like tinkering on the web. I used to love to make old like websites and the old GeoCities days back in the 90s. Like depending on how old you are, a lot of us like to put together those when we were teenagers and whatnot. And so I've always thought smart contracts were super interesting inside of the Web3 space. So I immediately jumped over to the contract agent Vulkan and started tinkering. And it was like, oh, this enables me to do all sorts of stuff that I normally would have no idea how to do. And I started reading about how NFT contracts work and interacting with Wayfinder. And after a fair amount of tinkering and collaboration with guys in the space, so I had the idea to create an on-chain game using Wayfinder as a goal. And so I started to think about what type of game makes sense to put together with the type of capabilities that I'm comfortable with inside a Wayfinder. And so a scavenger hunt sounded like a good idea. But I wanted to do something to kind of give back to the community and get the community involved so that it wasn't just like a pet project that, was just for kicks and giggles. So I had the idea for what I'm calling Operation Weighted Die is the game. And taking the mint revenue from a series of NFT collections that all recognize and kind of commemorate and celebrate the different parallel factions. The mint money from those primarily goes into a prize pool that was then going to be staked for prompt. And then once all the collections are complete, we'll launch the game and people will be able to participate and get some money back out of the collection through playing the game. And also hopefully educate others and learn about Wayfinder in the process and celebrate the community for what it is, because it's just a really solid, amazing community.
Sounds super cool. Definitely. So what was the creation process like using Wayfinder?
Good question. So like I said before, I really didn't have any idea of what went into an NFT in the process. The cool thing about Wayfinder is you go and ask it what you want to know. And so you can say, like, hey, I want to launch an NFT project. And I think it was actually, I was watching the Brazilian kid's stream and he was tinkering around with it late one night and did just that. And so Wayfinder will guide you through the process. It'll say, all right, in order to do this, I'm going to need like a name for the contract, and I'm going to need, the metadata that you want to use for it. And I'll ask you kind of some guiding questions and whatnot. To be candid, if you don't know exactly the different components of how to put an NFT together, Wayfinder in today's current iteration falls a little short because it's not going to go and put stuff. I guess I'll back up a second. To make an NFT, you need to have metadata that's hosted on what's called IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, I think it stands for. And that metadata has like the properties of an NFT, and it also tells you where the image is for the NFT. And you need a service that's going to permanently put that on the blockchain. So like something like Pinata is one that I used. So Wayfinder, when you're interacting with it, it will ask you for that information, but it's not going to put that information out there itself. So it's really a way that you get handheld through the process. And then it does the heavy lifting at the end to publish stuff to the blockchain, make sure all the security checks are completed, make sure that things are being done according to standards and they're not going to cause errors and things like that.
Yeah, so it seems like there's still a lot of things that you have to do in order to incorporate it with what you are doing with Wayfinder.
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of like I'll call it like an 80% partner. It'll get you 80% of the way there. you got to know how to do some of the 20% on some of the contract work.
Yeah.
But the more you interact with it, the better and better you get. I'd say it's definitely a little bit of a skill that as you spend more time with the contract agents, you learn more of what they expect, and obviously you get more familiar with the Web3 space and what it can do.
Talking about that path building, is there a way with path building to make it more than an 80% partner?
Yeah. So path building, I'd say, is a kind of a different story. Because if it's all stuff that can be done like directly on chain right now, sometimes in the evening, I'll just pull up Wayfinder on my phone and think about like, oh, there's this contract that I interact with frequently. Let me go see if I can build a path for it. And in 10 minutes of like poking around, maybe finding a transaction that I already had before to reference and see what it did, you can import a contract, have Wayfinder document it, tell you what it can do. And if you know what type of information it needs, you tell it what to look for. And in 5-10 minutes, you can have a path that from then on, other users can benefit from it. And when users use it, you'll profit from it, which is fantastic. I mean, it's a really great economy.
That's awesome. And yeah, well, talking about the paths, you did one recently for staking PDT. What motivated you to do that?
That was, I think, actually the first path that I made. And honestly, in the back of my head, I was like, hey, what's something that a lot of people are going to do in the community that that I can make some money off of potentially, and that will enable other people to do things easier on the blockchain. And so I've been a PDT staker for probably a year or so now. Once I found out about the project, one thing that I was going in and doing once a month is go in, see what my earnings are on my PDT, claim it, and I was like, oh, don't repeat yourself is a common mantra inside of IT and programming. And I'm like, great, I'm going to build a path for this. And maybe someday Wayfinder can just auto claim this every single month for me. But for now, instead of having to go log in, I can just go to Wayfinder and say, hey, claim my monthly earnings and be good to go.
Well, that's great to hear. Great to hear. In essence, the path, how does the path helps users?
I made a post recently about this, that the way that Wayfinder works really at its core on a lot of the contract side of things, as well as on the transaction side of things, is broken into like 3 pillars. And so I reference them as like validation, collateralization, and a graph. The validator is essentially like the pathfinding. I called it the quiet hero in my post, but it's what lets users and agents figure out where to go on the blockchain to do stuff in a safe manner. That's when you're just having that natural language interaction with Wayfinder and saying, I want to swap this for this, or I want to stake my PDT. The path validation is knowing that I have a trusted mechanism to do repeatedly that I know has no risk with it, that's going to act predictably and going to get the expected results out. And then the collateralization is really that the people kind of putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak. So they're saying, I'm going to stake some of my prompt on this path to ensure that it works so that people can trust it. And then when you kind of combine the two of those, you end up with a knowledge graph, which basically is like a constant living map for other agents that they refine over time as more users commit things to Wayfinder and create new paths. All the other agents benefit from it. And you end up with this nice web community of trusted paths for people to do what they need to do on chain.
Well, that's really nice. What feedback have you received from the community?
I think that the feedback that all of us that are excited about Wayfinder has just been phenomenal, really. I haven't seen a community like this in a long time. I'd say that if you look at the fanaticism behind the parallel community, I mean, the parallel community is second to none from that perspective. And when you look at the extension of that into the Wayfinder community, as we've onboarded people through the Cato community activation and things like that, you can just kind of see people are really, really excited about this because I think there's a real hunger and a thirst for easier access to Web3 technology.
Yep, definitely. So now talking Wayfinder as a tool for the community, how do you see Wayfinder evolving in the future?
I think that specifically for the Web3 community at large, there's no real limit to where it goes. And things are only going to get more insane from here, I guess you can say, as AI continues to take off and become better and better. I think that specific to kind of like the parallel community, it's going to enable players to not worry so much about the Web3 side of things. And it's going to be much more like just a normal operation that's being done in the background a lot of the time. So once the agents are able to make all these like difficult obstacle laden decisions that we kind of make in the Web3 space all the time, like going to a website and connecting your wallet and making sure that you're reading the contract rights and all that stuff, all that's going to fade into the background. And you'll just be able to play your games and have fun and say, hey, send by name, like send these 10 cards to this person and it's going to go figure it out and know how to do it, or collect my bounty rewards out of whatever system, or it'll just be done automatically. And you're not going to have to deal with a lot of the risks of going to a website, clicking on links, getting the right thing hooked up to the right place. And it's just going to make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. This is the most exciting part, making it friendly for the user. Definitely all of us, well, you have been in IT for 25 years, but many people, especially like what we call normies in Web3, they're afraid of doing transactions, like of touching the wallets and like touching the money, because they think that they might lose it. And a tool like this that just makes it friendly for everyone and just puts it in the back of your mind definitely will revolutionize and has the potential to revolutionize the whole industry, especially in gaming. What features or improvements would you love to see implemented in Wayfinder?
That's a tough question, I think, because it's in a lot of ways it's a really like thoroughly developed product, but in other ways, like we already know that there's a lot of places that it's going to go. Like we already know that there's an autonomous agent that's going to be released for everybody to use at some point, and that auto agent's going to allow you to really do so much. It's like it can go and check the markets for you on a daily basis and then make trades for you, or it can just generate reports about types of things, or it can go and, like I said before, collect staking rewards and stuff like that. So like we already know that's coming. We already know that there's a social agent that's coming that is going to be able to go and interact with, social media and also have a good finger on the pulse of what's going on with different knowledge opinion leaders, or as we like to call them, prompt opinion leaders in the space. I think it's hard for me to say what I'd love to see as a feature or what I'd love to see more of. I think if there's one thing, it would be a way to get better education into the user's hands for the potential things that Wayfinder can do. Right now, it's it's kind of a raw product where you can go and you can talk to it and it can tell you if it can do it or not. But sometimes people lack a little bit of imagination of like realizing what it can do. So one thing that helps me that I think is a good tip for other people is Wayfinder's scope of operations is pretty focused on like what it can do as a transaction agent or a contract agent. And so sometimes I'll go brainstorm with another AI product and I'll say like, what are some fun things that I can do on the web with Web3? And then I'll take some of that and go back to Wayfinder with it and see if I can implement it. And that's been really helpful for me.
Understandable that there's definitely so many things that you can think of, and going back and forth with other platforms definitely helps you to get the juices flowing. So let's talk about the Cairo Wayfinder campaign. There's a 0.25% supply of prompt dedicated to Jappers. How do you see Wayfinder getting perceived on Twitter before and after Cairo?
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal change. I don't have the charts in front of me, but the Wayfinder Twitter page or X page has been sharing them over time, and you can just see like good trending growth in general in the community, and then the Cato community activation, and it just kind of goes bonkers from there. And I think what they did was really smart and got a lot of people talking about it on social media and a lot of new signups as a result. And I thought that was really special. So the other day, Nays on X, he was like, somebody asked him if that we're going to need a new name for a KOL, KOL, which is knowledge opinion leader. And he's like, yeah, I've never really liked this name. We need something new. And I just threw out, how about a poll, a prompt opinion leader? And that just kind of stuck with the community after seeing the Cato continue to take off and seeing everybody just really get jazzed about this term. I was like, all right, well, I got to do something that's going to be cool for the community and is going to integrate Wayfinder and celebrate this this launch, so to speak, or this community activation. So I went on Wayfinder or hopped in Photoshop first and put together this this graphic for a prompt opinion leader that kind of looks like a commemorative badge, and then uploaded all the NFT metadata and all that, and went into Wayfinder, put together a contract for it, launched it inside of Wayfinder, and then went back, took the top 20 yappers from the last 30 days and sent them all one of these prompt opinion leader NFTs. And then the top 100 are going to get delivered a prompt opinion leader NFT in a few days here, once we wrap up a week of yapping, to celebrate all the people that are putting their time, effort, and energy into promoting this new community.
Amazing. Amazing. Really nice to see the community and people outside from the community. I recently also did a video about the Cairo campaign and how showing basically how more people outside of the parallel community are super hyped about Wayfinder. So really nice to see this also getting developed, and also the fact that if any of the products of Parallel Studios blows up, it will help the others. So really nice to see this campaign getting blown up in socials. So any advice you'd give someone looking to build something on Wayfinder?
I think definitely figure out what your goals are. Because of how like flexible Web3 can be, there's not really a limitation in a lot of ways of what you can do. It's just a matter of figuring out what the steps are to get there. So figure out what your goals are, and then maybe vet it with an AI tool. Of like, Grok is really good at Web3 conversations, and everybody on Twitter has access to it. So I'll go to Grok sometimes and be like, here's something that I want to do. How do you recommend that I get there? And then I'll go over to Wayfinder and be like, is this something that we can implement? And then let Wayfinder kind of chew on it a little bit. And if it runs into some impediments, I'll kind of go back and forth with the two of them until I get where I need to go. And I think it's, like I said before, we're kind of at the base level of product development in some ways. And so it's just going to get better over time. And eventually, I think Wayfinder is going to be able to do all of this collaborative back and forth with you. And you're not going to wants to go into another, knowledge and research engine to get where you need to be. So yeah, I just kind of to re-summarize, figure out what your goals are, and then break it down into smaller steps, and then go into Wayfinder and start playing.
Nice. So in the future, are there any implications outside of crypto for Wayfinder?
Well, this is one area that I think I'm really excited about, and I hadn't really thought about it until Kalos was talking about it recently. And when you think about the nice handhold really that you get between AI and crypto, there's really a natural progression that's going to happen at some point of the handholding between crypto and AI and non-crypto markets. And so a good way that I like to think about this is the internet already has APIs for you to connect and do things, like when you go and you buy clothes online, or you want to go and purchase something. It's usually like an API that's systems are talking to each other. What you could potentially have someday is an API for Wayfinder to interact with a normal Web 2 market. So you could go and like order a pizza from Domino's. Hey, Wayfinder, order me a pepperoni pizza for 6 o'clock tonight at this address. And it's going to go and look at all of the pizza providers in your area, and it's going to find the one with the best price for a pepperoni pizza. And then it's going to give you an estimated time of arrival for your pizza and ask you if you want to pay for it with crypto. And then it'll automatically turn that into USDC or whatever, handle whatever market handoff needs to happen through a third-party provider. And you've got a pizza in half an hour. I think that's really where things can go as like a minimalist possibility for the total market integration with Wayfinder.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. One last question. What are you most excited about in the parallel ecosystem right now?
Oh man, I don't think we have enough time. I mean, really, like the team is firing on all cylinders. You know, it's just been really, really cool. I'm excited for Colony, and I think that I got a family. I'm a busy person, and I think that it's going to be a great having that like 1.5 simulation experience. Having something that I can just play when I have some time, and in the background, it's kind of continuing to play. I used to play Eve Online several years ago, and that was one thing I loved about that game is I could go in and like train skills when I'm not playing. And so I love the idea of a game that keeps playing when I'm not playing, and I can kind of catch up and engage when I want to engage. But Sanctuary 2 is like mind blowing. I'm so excited to see how quickly the B3 team is working on pumping that out for later this year. I never expected that. And it's going to be a phenomenal experience to be able to look at all of the assets and the lore tie in with each other across all the different play styles. And we get to learn more about the parallel universe that a lot of us have been craving. So it's very exciting.
Well, big thanks, Arithmos, for sharing all this amazing information about Wayfinder, what you're doing, your collection. To everyone watching, please remember to like, subscribe, and check the links in the description to Arithmos Paths and Collections NFT collection. See you on the next one.